Hey, do you have a KTM or Husqvarna adventure bike that is making some serious valve train noise? Well, one thing you want to check is going to be your timing chain tensioner. So we had a Norden 901. It's making all kinds of racket, and we thought for sure something with our cams, rock rounds, whatever, we thought something was going on. So we took the valve cover off, took the cams out, took some measurements, and everything was within spec. So when we took a look at the timing chain tensioner, that's what we found was bad. And that's pretty common with these bikes. So we're gonna be showing you how to replace your timing chain tensioner on the KTM 690s, the 790s, the 890s, and the Husqvarna 701s and 901s. Now these stock tensioners, they've been known to have some issues. And on startup, since they use that hydraulic pressure, it can cause your chain to be kind of noisy for a second. And then the adjusters on these, there's quite a bit of spacing in between. So there's a lock to keep this from collapsing too far. And if you're in between, it can create some serious racket. So that's why we're upgrading to this Dirt Tricks timing chain tensioner. It's a good old reliable mechanical ratcheting system, and it has fine teeth. So once this is expanded out, it's gonna keep your timing chain tight during startup. You're not gonna have that extra rattle or racket. And then also, you're not gonna have to worry about it failing like these stock timing chain tensioners. So those are the reasons we're upgrading. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, to get this done, the specific sockets that we need, we've got 8, 10, 15, and 22 millimeter sockets. I've got 4, 5, 6, and 10 millimeter Allens, T30 and T40 Torx bits. I have torque wrenches. I've got some pliers, including some snap ring pliers. And then over here, safety glasses, rubber gloves, rags. I've got a few additional zip ties for when we go back together. And then there's a special tool from KTM that you can use to lock your crank up. I just made one out of an M8 by 75 millimeter bolt. And I ground the tip almost to a point right there. So you've got options when it comes to that. And then we're also gonna be using a little bit of Loctite, some grease. I've got the Yamabond 4 and some gloss coat. Now, if you need to pick up the Dirt Tricks timing chain tensioner, it's available on our website along with a lot of these tools. So if you don't have something and you need it, head on over there, click the link in the description below. For now, let's get into the job. To get this done, Dirt Tricks recommends rotating your engine over to top dead center to minimize the risk of jumping time while you replace the tensioner. We've heard of people replacing their tensioners without doing that though, and they've done it successfully, but again, you run that risk of jumping time. So we want to make sure we do the job correctly. We're going to be pulling our gas tank and our valve cover, and that way we know we've done the job correctly. Now it's up to you whether the extra work is worth it or not. And throughout this process, it's going to look a little bit different from bike to bike. Again, we're showing you on the 890, and it's going to be a great guideline for any of these bikes, but you do want to refer to your model specific service manual. Start out by removing your seat and your side covers. Then we have our battery cover and shrouds. Next, we're going to remove our fuel tank. So to get this off, we need to remove our fuel cap. We also have a couple vent lines on top. Now for the high pressure fuel line, we've got the tank hardware loosened up so we can move this out a little bit. This green clip needs to be popped down. We're just going to use a flat blade screwdriver. You don't want to pop it all the way out. That's going to free up the high pressure line. Now we're going to show you this without a rag, but you're going to spill out a little bit of fuel, so it's not a bad idea to have a rag around it. We'll go ahead and pull that off. We need to disconnect the fuel pump and our crossover line. Then we're going to remove the hardware and pull it off. Disconnect your negative battery cable. Remove the 2 battery tray bolts. Now on the left side of the bike, we have some electrical connectors we're going to disconnect. And we're also going to remove our crankcase vent. Next, we have some wiring coming from our ignition coil. I'm going to disconnect that. We're going to be using our T30 Torx bit to remove them. Then we're going to rock this bracket out. You can see we've already snipped a couple of zip ties here, and there's a little tab holding this ignition coil wire onto the bracket. I'm just going to press in on it and remove it. Then we can remove the ignition coil bolts and both ignition coils. Remove the 4 valve cover bolts. And then we're going to remove the valve cover from the right side of the bike. And as you can see, there's not a lot of room in here, so you might need to press up on the cover as you slide it out the side. With the cover removed, wipe off the sealing surface and make sure you didn't get any dirt where it shouldn't be. And we have a timing bolt and washer on the right side. Next, use your 10 mil Allen to pull the timing plug. Now that we have our valve cover out of the way, we need to first put number 2 cylinder at top dead center. So if you're looking at your cams, these are going to be the marks that say OT2. There's going to be a dot on each cam. We're going to rotate the crank counterclockwise until both of those dots are facing each other and flush with the cylinder head. Once you're in that spot, there's a cam lever clip. You're going to need to pull that out. This is the one with the red tab. That's going to allow us to move the cam levers over. So this is really hard to see down in here, but we're just going to push each lever to the side, and this is going to be to the right of the bike if you're sitting on it. With those levers out of the way, we can now put the engine on top dead center on the compression stroke on cylinder number 1. So again, we're going to rotate the engine counterclockwise, and we're going to be taking a look at the OT1 timing marks. So these are going to be the lines, and you can see all these marks. I put a white paint pen on these so you can better see the process. And now that we have cylinder 1 on top dead center, we want to verify our timing mark down on our crankshaft. So that's going to be that inspection hole we previously removed the bolt out of. There should be a little notch in the crank. We can see that on ours, so we know we're lined up and timed correctly. And now we're going to take our locking screw and we're going to thread that into place. You don't want to crank this tight, you just want to snug it down. Now for the timing chain tensioner, on the very back, there's a little screw we're going to loosen up. We're going to use our 5mm Allen for that. Then I've got my 22mm wrench. And we're going to loosen and remove the timing chain tensioner. So we've got the cap, tensioner itself, and there should be a little O-ring. If that stays inside the bore, make sure you get a pick and pull that out. Now for the Dirt Tricks tensioner, we want to make sure this is good to go. So I'm going to push the spring in, make sure this thing actually clicks and locks into place. So that's looking good. Now you want to make sure that that plunger is all the way collapsed. So one thing you can do is give it a shake without the spring. And that's going to let it sit all the way to the bottom. Then we're going to take this O-ring from the other tensioner. We're going to put it on this one. Now in this cap, we've got this little spider ring and we need to remove it. The easiest way I've found to remove it is with some snap ring pliers. Now this one, I've already collapsed it just a little bit, but if you squeeze onto that, it's going to bend 2 ends in and you should be able to remove it pretty easily. Now we've already prepped our tensioner. We're going to set that into the cap. We've made sure the O-ring on the cap is in good condition. So we're going to go ahead and install this. And we're going to torque that to 18.4 foot-pounds. So you can see chain's still loose right here. Now all we need to do is install the spring from the back of that cap. And this is going to push the tensioner out. You might hear some clicks. That's going to tension up our chain. We're gonna torque this cover bolt to 5.9 foot-pounds. And you can see if I try to rotate the sprocket now, it's taking all the slack out of that chain. So from here we can remove that locking bolt. And if you want to verify one last time, you can just double check all of your timing marks. With that Dirt Tricks tensioner installed, all we need to do now is reassemble the bike the same way it came apart. Next, we need to rotate the engine 435 degrees. Again, we're going counterclockwise as we rotate this on the left side of the bike. We're gonna make sure we have the OT2 timing marks lined up again. And from there, we can slide the cam levers back over. So if you're sitting on the bike, the levers are gonna be going from right to left. And then we can mount our cam lever clip and just make sure it is fully clipped into position. Now for the valve cover, you want to clean off your sealing surfaces. Make sure you don't have any dirt or debris on here. And then wipe the gasket on the valve cover itself. Make sure that's nice and clean, especially by these little half moons. Now we've already installed the 2 gaskets around those spark plug tubes. And then for the little half moons on this cover, I'm gonna put just a little dab of silicone sealant. This is just Yama Bond 4. It doesn't take much at all. Even that's probably a little much. I'm gonna wipe the extra away. Now we're gonna put the valve cover into position, and just keep in mind, you know, there's this little tray and some wires. Just push those things out of the way and be careful not to catch your gasket on these spark plug tubes. Now on this side of the valve cover, we've got another little half moon, and we're applying some of that silicone sealant in each corner there as well. And the reason I waited is as you pull this across, you don't want to get sealant all over the cylinder head or valve train parts. So to get that in there, again, it's just a small amount, and I'm using a small screwdriver just to put a little dab in those corners. Now I do want to point out the manual will tell you you can go all the way across the bottom, but typically I'm always just doing the corners on these. And we have that little bit of silicone sealant. We're going to wipe that away. After that, we can reinstall our valve cover bolts with the seals on them. All right, now for our timing plugs, I'm going to put a little grease on this left side timing plug. We're not going to torque this. If you over tighten them, they're going to be really hard to get off. So all you want to do here is get that snugged up. We'll give it one little tighten, make sure it's not coming off. Now on the other side, we have the inspection hole bolt. I'm going to thread that in and torque it to 11.1 foot-pounds. Now for the coil-on caps, we're going to use some silicone spray, or for us, we're actually using a little gloss coat. We're using that on the rubber just to make this easier to install. And then go ahead and install the retaining bolt. If you need a torque, it's 5.9 foot-pounds. Then from here, we need to reinstall our brackets. So again, we have these 4 bolts going across here. We've got the 2 bolts going in our battery box. And then we need to make our electrical connections. Reinstall any zip ties you previously removed. And then on this left side of the bike, we've got that crankcase vent. Make sure you get that bolt back in place along with that retainer. Then we'll make all of our electrical connections over here. Once you've done that, make sure you take a look at all of the routing, make sure everything's looking good, and then we can go ahead and connect the negative terminal on our battery. After that, we're going to reinstall our tank. So there's the 4 grommets that sit on the inside, make sure those are in place. Then we're going to make our connections. Then up top we have the vent lines, install the cap, make the connections on the bottom and reconnect your fuel line and make sure that the green clip is pressed in once you have that line all the way in place. Reinstall the mounting hardware. Then we have our side panels and our seat. Then from here, you want to make sure that both fuel valves are open on your fuel tank, and then we can reinstall our skid plate. All right, so that's it for installing the Dirt Tricks KTM timing chain tensioner on your KTM 790 or 890 adventure bike and the Husqvarna 901s. Now, if you have any questions about the process, leave those down in the comments. And hey, if you need to pick one of these up, you can find them on our website. Just click the link in the description below. We offer free shipping on orders over $75. So take advantage of that and subscribe to our channel for more helpful content. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.